Marianne gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, as she wound up the misty hills toward Willowbend Village, the quaint little town nestled in the northern forests of the United States. This open house had to go perfectly. After a string of lackluster sales months, her reputation as a top realtor hung by a thread. She had been unable to sell houses, deal after deal falling through due to her unprofessionalism and being unable to keep appointments with her clients. The glass house would be her salvation. She just knew it. She jumped at the chance to get the listing that no other realtor would touch. The dreaded, cursed glass house. A curse for some, an opportunity for others, she thought to herself, smiling brightly. Her heartbeat quickened as the eccentric structure came into view, perched at the end of a cobblestone lane. Crystal walls winked in the pale light, beckoning her. Steeling herself, Marianne stepped onto the polished glass porch, her high heels making loud clacking noises as she walked confidently towards the front door of her salvation. As the front door creaked open, she shivered against the cold draft that swept past. Her heels clacked loudly in the silence as she crossed the threshold into the foyer. Dust moved out of her way, bringing a sense of worry to her mind about the cleanup that would inevitably have to happen before she could even think about bringing in a potential buyer. She needed this desperately. Her career depended upon everything going off without a hitch. But it wouldn't be that simple. Nothing ever is. She noted the living area bathed in sunlight, yet edged with lingering shadows crawling up and down the walls, almost looking like misshapen humanoids. The very idea that someone could be hiding in the shadows, watching her, made her uneasy as she walked through the house. A chill crept down her spine, but she shook it off, concentrating on the task at hand. This house would turn her fortunes around. It had to. Venturing deeper, Marianne called out brightly, but her voice barely echoed. Unease bloomed in her gut. The smooth glass walls suddenly groaned and shifted. Marianne froze, watching the panels rotate and seal shut around her, as if the glass house had clamped down like a trap. Marianne's breaths came sharp and fast in the airless space as she pressed against the curved glass walls, searching for escape. This must be some kind of mistake or sick joke, she thought to herself, in a desperate attempt to calm her nerves. This must be why no one else wanted this listing, so they could pull some kind of sick joke on me. Her fear turned to anger before quickly dissipating as she tried to look for a way out. But the surface rippled under her palms as if she'd disturbed dark waters. From the creeping shadows came hushed voices, recounting unimaginable horrors committed within this house. Their warnings increased as the maze undulated around her. Marianne stumbled on, the frigid air burning her lungs. There had to be a way out somehow. The voices swelled, guiding her turns, compelling her toward long-abandoned rooms. Muted cries echoed from somewhere deep within the labyrinth. Gritting her teeth, Marianne felt along the glass, her fingertips going numb. But she was determined to follow the voices and find the truth of this house's buried past. The dim passageways twisted endlessly as Marianne navigated the shifting walls. Shadowy figures flickered in her periphery, their anguished faces pleading. She shook her head against the visions, but they persisted. The glass maze pulsed with strange energy, rerouting her steps each time she drew near an exit. Marianne's breath seized in her chest as the temperature plummeted further. Each new corridor appeared darker than the last. Still, she pushed on, fueled by desperation, glimpsing the house's tragic memories. Cries of pain, lives cut brutally short, evil etched into every surface. The voices swelled in urgency, enticing her toward salvation. Marianne stumbled over debris, hands scraped and knees bloodied, but she forged ahead, guided by those trapped souls. Marianne lost track of how many hours had passed wandering the lightless maze. The frigid air leached the strength from her limbs even as the voices filled her mind. She paused at a stained glass panel depicting a twisted human form. This house's foundations were poisoned by generations of anguish. Cold certainty gripped Marianne then. The glass house had to be destroyed. Only rubble could silence the echoes of atrocity committed here. Renewed purpose burned in her veins as she trailed her fingers along the glass, leaving a crimson streak. The voices guided her onward through the gloom, past monstrous scenes of torment frozen behind the crystal walls. At long last, Marianne crawled toward a distant glow. sheltering her eyes against the blinding light. The exit lay just ahead if only she could reach it. The voices swelled in anticipation, urging her forward. Sunlight spilled over Marianne as she dragged herself from the glasshouse's clutches and collapsed onto the brittle grass. Every muscle screamed from exertion and cold. Her mind reeled, haunted by gruesome visions from deep within the crystalline labyrinth. As feeling returned to her numb hands, Marianne knew she could not let what she'd witnessed fade to silent complicity. This house's dark legacy had to be brought to light. Over the next weeks, emboldened by her own experience, Marianne gathered accounts from others who had found themselves trapped within the shifting glass walls over the decades. Too many had glimpsed the lingering evil. Their collective stories in hand, she pleaded with the Willowbend Council to demolish the structure she had once admired. The town elders hesitated, bound by bureaucracy, until Marianne's fervent conviction swayed them. The date was set. The glass house would fall. In the days before demolition, Marianne felt the weight of the task at hand settle upon her weary shoulders. Though merely a witness to the glass house's horrors, she now carried the memories of countless victims. Restless nights left her gazing out her window at the distant crystal walls winking in the moonlight. She revisited her research, reminding herself what poison had seeped into the soil beneath that cursed foundation. The ghosts of the past cried out, demanding justice she alone could not grant. But Marianne had set events in motion now beyond her control. Soon their voices would echo no more, released from their glass prison. As she dressed on the cold, misty morning of demolition, Marianne steeled herself. Today had to happen, though it could not undo past wrongs. The glass house had to fall. A solemn crowd lined the cobblestone lane, muffled anticipation hanging over them as Marianne took her place. A frigid breeze whipped her coat as she watched the wrecking ball shift into position. With a deafening crack, the iron sphere swung into glittering walls. Glass exploded in a crystalline rain as the first blow landed. The structure groaned as its smooth facade began giving way to the onslaught. Marianne remained steady amidst the spectacle of destruction, mesmerized by the unfolding violence and chaos. The glass house fractured further, spilling its secrets and releasing its prisoners. As the crew delivered the final blows, the building collapsed in a muted roar, glass shards billowing outward. The voices that had haunted its maze carried on the wind. Finally unfettered, it was done. The glass house was no more. In the aftermath, Marianne wandered the rubble, the only sound the crunching of glass fragments under her feet. The shadows had lifted, the cold banished from the surrounding air. Light poured over the now exposed foundation in cleansing beams. At last, unburdened by the haunting memories she had unearthed, Marianne turned away from the demolition site, glimpsing faces in the dispersing crowd alight with shared relief. The glass house could never again exert its perverse hold, having succumbed to hard-won justice. Its broken remains now formed an enduring memorial to those it had consumed. As she left Willowbend behind, Marianne glanced back one final time. The glass shards caught the noon sun, winking like stars scattered to light the way forward.